up, guys? It's your boy Young Galactic here, back with another banger. But no, like seriously, guys. So today I wanted to do a video. I love this YouTube channel. It's called B1M, and they usually talk about architecture. But one of the things that I'm passionate about, and that maybe some of you guys are passionate about, is architecture and design. So I wanted to do a video. I kind of have some global macro stuff that's going to be included in the video. So China has been on a tear, maybe like the last, I would say like 20 to 30 years. I would really say like 30 to 40 to give it like I'm about to be 30. So I would say a good 30 to 40 years. Since like the late 80s, early 90s, but really like the last, I guess this century, they've just been on a tear. So we'll just jump into the video. I'll make some commentary points. I had a couple opinions on the whole Evergrande stuff with China, their debt, not being able to pay their debt, and how that could kind of incorporate with trading and global macro. So anyways, we'll jump into the video. Oh.
This is Haikou, the capital of China's Henan province. It's home to more than 2
I have never heard of Haikou before. So I've heard of Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Wuhan. Of course, everybody's heard of Wuhan. But anyways, I've never heard of them before. Well, there's another city, Macau. But anyways, we'll jump back in the video.
million people, but not even in the country's top 50 by population. And yet, despite being a small city by China's standards, it's still full of tall buildings, including skyscrapers, all of which have been built since 2000. But that's all about to change. The recent ban on the construction of super tall buildings across China has been significantly expanded, and now even small skyscrapers in places like this will be forbidden. Oh, and there's been a tightening of restrictions in China's bigger cities too.
So to kind of touch into that, a lot of different countries have different architectural like standards. So like in the U, like one of the things I never really noticed until I started traveling was that like in the US, you see like condos like in the major cities in the US, but you don't really see them in small cities. And that's one of the things I kind of noticed like when I came out to Canada, was that if you guys are reading my body language, it's not because I'm trying to cut you guys off or anything like that. But anyways, so when you're looking at different countries, they all have different standards when it comes to architecture and the things that you're able to do. So in small cities in the US, you're not going to really see like 15-story condos in the middle of nowhere. Whereas like here in Canada, you'll see it pretty often. And it's kind of like that in other countries. I think I remember watching a video. We'll watch a video on that too. But it was a guy, he was talking about in Amsterdam, they only have certain restrictions. So you don't really see like huge, like if you're in Atlanta, we have huge apartment complexes. And, it might have like 1,000 doors. But then usually out here in not out here in the US, I'm in Canada right now. But in Canada, you'll have like a house, maybe a store. And the next thing you know, you see like a 15, 20-story condo. And I don't know how many doors you have in these condo units. Maybe, I'll say maybe like 200 to 300. But you're building up instead of out. So anyways, it's just an interesting thing that I realized, like traveling, or even in the UK. Now in the UK, it was really interesting because I didn't really see any condo buildings outside of London, like tall condo buildings, but I saw some that were like I guess they call them flats out there. And they're just so interesting. Like, I mean, it's just really interesting when you get into architecture and city planning and all that stuff. But anyways, let's jump back into the video.
So what's caused the nation with more skyscrapers than anyone else across China has been significantly expanded. And now even small skyscrapers in places like this will be forbidden. Oh, and there's been a tightening of restrictions in China's bigger cities too. So what's caused the nation with more skyscrapers than anyone else to make such a dramatic U-turn?
So to kind of go back on this, I think that what in China, what they're trying to do is, let's see how I could put it, like, I guess like diversify or like make it to where more people have more opportunity. So, you know, like in the US, you can't have like monopoly practices on businesses, but I think they kind of noticed that only a few people are getting really rich in China. I could be completely wrong on that. Like, I'm not super in depth on Chinese politics. But anyways, we'll jump back into the video.
You might remember our video from July 2020 responding to a pretty extraordinary bit of news coming out of China. The country's Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development had just banned the construction of buildings over 500 metres in height and placed heavy restrictions on those planning to go over 250 metres.
Entire cities designed to look like Paris, Venice, London, even Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
It also put a stop to the copycat architecture craze, which saw large and slightly weird replicas of landmarks from around the world pop up in several cities.
The Eiffel Tower! Look at that place!
Despite some analysts predicting its skyscraper obsession would calm down at some point, the fact that China would contribute no further to the list of the world's tallest buildings, which it dominates, came as a shock to many. And yet it's another government announcement made in October 2021 where things get really interesting. Because now, cities with populations under 3 million won't be able to build skyscrapers at all. Going taller than 150 metres, the height at which a building officially becomes a skyscraper will no longer be allowed. If that
Hang on, guys. I just gotta go back a quick second.
which a building officially
Like, look at that view, man. Like, I don't know if you guys ever just look at cityscapes or like skylines, but I mean, it's just sometimes when you just see like the beauty and the architecture and the thought that goes behind, like, just I just don't even know how to explain it. It's just so beautiful. If you guys know me, like, I love futuristic stuff, so I just love like thinking about futuristic cities and like floating cities or like mega buildings. But it's just sometimes you just see some things that are just so beautiful. But anyways, we'll jump back in the video.
becomes a skyscraper will no longer be allowed. If that wasn't all, larger cities will be limited to 250 metres, less than half the height of China's tallest buildings. Now, special exemptions may still be given if a small city really needs a new skyscraper, but they absolutely definitely cannot go above 250 metres. Likewise, a bigger city could go higher than that if it has a convincing case, but if it wants to go over 500 metres, then forget it. No more Shanghai Towers or Ping An Finance Centres, and that's final. There are even new rules to follow past the 100 metre mark. To go higher than that, a building will need to meet certain seismic and fire safety requirements.
Now, there's a whole bunch of controversy over like China and some of their architecture. I'm not a genius when it comes to China at all, but I was watching some videos and they were talking about like a lot of their buildings really aren't up to code. A lot of the really nice buildings are, but a lot of people just like, let's see how I can put it, like they just build the building just to build a building. Like it's not so in China, now this is just from my research, a lot of people invest in real estate more than like the Chinese stock market. So some developers will just build a building. All right, guys. So unfortunately, the video crashed last time, so I got to redo it. Sorry, future Eon. Sorry, past Eon. I got to redo this, present Eon. So, anyways, sorry, guys. We'll jump back in the video and we'll jump into it.
100 metre mark. To go higher than that, a building will need to meet certain seismic and fire safety requirements. The question then is, why? Wasn't China getting by just fine before? Didn't its
Yes, it was.
Skyscraper boom helped it achieve those remarkable rates of development that it's enjoyed since the 1980s. Well, not everyone was
Yo, that beat goes hard. That beat goes hard. I don't know if you like beats, but that beat goes hard.
that stunned by these new measures. In fact, some experts kind of saw it coming.
I'm not surprised at all that this new rules came in, because in the past few years, Chinese government clearly start to pay more attention to the building quality and also the characteristics of Chinese cities.
Dr. Fei Chen is
So to kind of touch up on that, I saw a couple videos, maybe within the last 6 months, ever since I started doing research on Evergrande, and it's interesting, like when you see some of the poor quality that a lot of these Chinese developers are producing. Not all of them, but a decent amount. Like I saw some buildings, it doesn't even look like people should be living in them. It's just weird. Like, and I know, so basically a lot of Chinese investors will invest more so in real estate, or even it could kind of be like a bubble to an extent. Now, I'm not saying it is a bubble, but a majority of people will just take out a bunch of debt and buy real estate, but the real estate isn't necessarily for people to live in. It's just to develop and to just sell to somebody else, and then just to sell to somebody else at a higher price. So anyways, some of these buildings, they don't even look livable, and some people do live in these buildings. But we'll do another video on those buildings. That way you could kind of see what I'm talking about. Anyways, let's jump in the video.
a senior lecturer at the University of Liverpool's School of Architecture in the UK. She specialises in urban design and public space.
In the past more than 3 decades, as you know, the urbanization speed in China was astonishing and really rapid. And in that process, a lot of buildings were built by speed, really, so not in a high quality and high standard. So Chinese government.
And that's something like I've known since maybe when I was in high school, like 2010, 2011. Like they can build buildings super fast out there, but a lot of the time the quality just isn't there because you're building it fast and you're not really taking your time. You're not usually, if you're building a building super fast, you're not using like the best material. So yeah,
Governments have noticed this problem.
Those concerns about quality have only grown, not helped by incidents like this in May 2021, where footage of a skyscraper in Shenzhen shaking uncontrollably went viral. Officials are also keen to prevent more so-called vanity projects, where buildings are constructed more to make a statement than meet an actual need. Those buildings occasionally result in more floor space than could ever realistically be filled, and designs that arguably give little consideration to the surrounding area. There's the really extreme cases too. Some cities are now stuck with half-built skyscrapers caused by major financial problems during their construction.
all right, so in previous video I mentioned this as well. So one of the things that's interesting is usually when you're now I can't say for sure, but this is from the knowledge that I do have, is when you're building these like when you're constructing these buildings, usually you're going to have some amount of debt that goes into constructing them. Even if you have investors, or you might have like some joint ventures and things like that, you're going to usually have some type of debt. So I don't know if you can have fixed rates on that debt, but if not, these buildings are usually taking a couple of years to finish construction. And if interest rates are starting to rise during that time, it's gonna get harder and harder for you to make those payments on that debt. So anyways, I'm just trying to remember what I said in the last video, but I remember saying something along the lines of the reason why I'm kind of going into this in depth with this is because, of course, I'm trading and everything, but ultimately I would like to get into urban development and building futuristic buildings. So the goal of this channel is for us all to get rich together. So I'm kind of just bringing you guys on the journey with me on that. So that's why we're kind of making theorizations, and well, I don't even know if that's a freaking word, but we're hypothesizing what could potentially happen when you're developing these type of buildings, either in the US or Canada or the UK or China or any other country. you're going to usually have some type of debt. And I'm not certain if it would come down to the interest rate of the country or the interest rate of the origin country in which you're from, but we'll figure that out together.
Like Goldin Finance 117, a story we've told before on this channel. Then there are the environmental reasons.
Okay, so this is one of those sceneries that I was talking about that's just so beautiful. Like when you just look at this, I don't know what this building is called, but I've seen it every time I look at this. I think this is, now don't get me wrong, like don't butcher me, but I think this is Shanghai. I think this is Shanghai. But anyways, this building is just so beautiful. Like it's always been the centerpiece for me when I look at this cityscape. And then like you have these two other ones here in the background. But the thing is after these regulations were made, you're not really going to see buildings like this. Now I'm not certain how tall this one is, but it looks like it's a decent size. So you're not going to really see buildings like this anymore, at least out there, other than these. But we'll see. Like those things could change, you know, after a certain amount of time. So we'll jump back in a few, guys.
Like the high wind pressures and urban heat island effect that many skyscrapers create around them, as well as the added strain they can place on a city's transport system.
Another concern is also a social concern as well, because all those buildings mostly are out of context, because Chinese cities still had a long history of development, and most of them still have a lot of historical buildings in it, and most of them are low rise.
Focusing more on small cities which haven't been through the same massive development yet ensures they don't also become packed with tall buildings which simply aren't needed. But while the new rules make it clear what you mustn't do, there's
like one of the things I think will be positive for this is just the fact that you're not going to have people so focused on just building high, but maybe getting a little bit more creative with the design of a building. Just because a lot of the times when you're trying to build those super tall buildings, you don't really have anything crazy beautiful about them design wise. Like they're usually pretty basic. They're just tall. And I think there's definitely should be some type of innovation when it comes to the design and concept of buildings. Like one of my favorite architects, you know, rest in peace, Zaha Hadid, her buildings are just gorgeous. I mean, like they have the height, but then they also just have this unique design. And I think one of the things that kind of comes with the design is they're not always going to be the most, most efficient, but just from a view and beauty wise, like standpoint, like they're just gorgeous. But anyways, hopefully, since they're not so focused on height, that they focus a little bit more on the design, since they're not having to make such a huge effort on just the foundation and making sure that it's structurally sound. But anyways, let's see what they say in the rest of the video.
There's not a lot of detail on what you should do instead. Dr. Shen believes this is because Chinese cities differ greatly between regions, which would make it difficult to take a one-size-fits-all approach.
The thing about China,
I think that's really cool. Like you just have like these beautiful mountains and this river, and you just have like this really small city. Or it's not even a city, it's probably just like considered a little town, but it's just really beautiful. Like I would love to see that in person. I don't know where this is, but it's just amazing.
is that it's a big country, and the development level are so different from city to city, and their historical remains are so different from city to city. So it's really hard in a central government issued document to see what you should do.
Instead, local authorities, planners and architects are encouraged to decide that for themselves, ensuring that what they come up with works within the current setting, rather than going for extreme heights, wacky designs, or both. It all seems to make sense, but why is this happening now? And
this is another cut. Unfortunately, the video stopped again. So we're back, different shirt, new hair, new me, new year. New year, new me. But anyways, we'll jump back in a video. Jumped off from where we left off at. This is like take 56. So we'll see what happens after this one. Let's jump into it.
is happening now? And does the timing have anything to do with another situation in China that caught the world's attention in 2021?
It's called Fairyland, but it feels like a ghost town. It's more than $300 billion.
So that's what I was kind of mentioning about earlier. Or maybe it was in a different take. I don't remember. But Evergrande was building, I mean, not just Evergrande, a lot of real estate developers in China were just building just to build. It wasn't any utility for what they were building. As you can see, they were just trying to build a little Disneyland, and I'm pretty sure nobody invested in that. Or maybe some people did, I don't know. But anyways, a lot of the time, people are just investing in the real estate, at least in China. A lot of Chinese investors were just investing, and nobody was even living in the buildings, unfortunately. So a lot of homeless people live in them, and they weren't built to code. So a lot of them are super unsafe. And we'll watch another video about that. Like, I saw a couple of the buildings, and I was like, I don't even see how people live in those. And then they put some people in jail because of it. It was weird. Anyways, let's jump back into it.
Dollars in debt and has defaulted on 2 overseas bonds.
We're talking, of course, about the ongoing real estate crisis, which has seen developers like Evergrande, one of the biggest in China, struggle to pay off massive debts, sell their housing stock, and access new financing.
This has a lot to do with the economic changes in this current situation. In the past few years, they started to encourage the circular economy within the country because they don't see the high international trading is a sustainable way in the future. There's a lot of ghost towns. They build residential buildings, but nobody buying it in some, especially in the inland.
So that's what I was talking about. You know, a lot of ghost towns where nobody's even living there. I remember the first time I actually saw it was probably in like 2006, maybe 2008 or 9. It was somewhere in like the mid to late 2000s. And they were just building like these huge ghost cities. And, you know, I'm a conspiracy theorist. So I was just thinking about like, why are they building these cities? And then I saw something like how they are building cities for the end of the world and all this type of weird stuff. But anyways, I was real young at that time. I was like maybe 12, like 10 or 12. But yeah, they're just building these ghost cities. Nobody's living in the cities. And even in the real cities, like they're just building these buildings and nobody's even living in them. So it's just interesting. But they're just building them just to build, just because they can get investors and they can find a buyer. So just be cautious of stuff like that. Now, you could always, you know, try and trade it, you know, use some risk management, diversify your portfolio and say, hey, look, I'm gonna buy some land here. And then even if it's not, you know, it's not my whole account or it's not my whole portfolio. So even if I can't find somebody else to buy it from me, it's not going to be that bad. Like, it's like 1% of my portfolio, and that's, you know, it's not bad. But anyways, we'll jump back into it.
Cities.
The new rules can't change what's already happened, but they could help prevent further struggles like this from...
Oh yeah, and that's what I was talking about as well. Like, you can kind of see, like, this place right here is ran down. Now, it could have been an off day when they recorded this, but I just doubt it based off how, like, dingy it looks. So I'm thinking that this is probably one of those projects where they either just abandoned it or somebody else bought it and they're just looking for another buyer.
Happening again in the future, although it's a complex issue that height restrictions alone can't solve. Overall, the response has been mostly favourable. The fact we'll never see another Chinese megatool might make some a bit sad, but it's probably the right decision. Going forward, smaller cities will need to find other ways to put themselves on the map. China's insatiable growth is seemingly now maturing into a new phase, one where the architectural and economic integrity of its cities matters more than ever before. If you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, make sure you're subscribed to the B1M.
Yeah, so definitely check out the B1M. I've been following for a few years now. Great channel if you like architecture and design or like city development or anything like that. And please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the post notification bell. Goodbye, my friends. Peace.
Man, even Jesus had a shooter. And God be having unbelievers that didn't mess up their demeanor. And yes, they know it's hard, they know, cause when they be up in those trenches, man, they show out.